welcome back to the Meraki Unboxed podcast. Super excited for another awesome episode today. And I'm going to be joined by someone who's actually returning to the podcast. And I'm very excited about that because I thought I had listened to every episode, but clearly there's one out there in the wild I have not listened to yet. So adding that to my to-do list for tonight. But my name is Sammy Brenner. I'm going to be running us through today. We have a fantastic guest. Before we get into her journey, her story, learning a bit more about the Meraki ecosystem, I'm going to do my shameless plug. So if you'd like to be on the podcast, if you have ideas, if there's maybe a subject we haven't covered yet that you're like, this would be freaking amazing to do an episode about, let us know. Go ahead and tweet at Meraki Simon. And if it makes sense to collaborate, we'd love your ideas, your input, your feedback. So without further ado, let's do it. So Alicia has been with Cisco Meraki for almost 6 years now. She started as an individual contributor on the sales team, as an account executive. Then she moved into an MDM specialist role on the transformation team. And now she's leading the global ecosystem team here at Cisco Meraki. Man, that is a whole lot of hats in a short amount of time. Like she's not busy enough, she's also a mother of an adorable 3-year-old son, and she has a 7-month-old daughter at home. She lives in the Bay Area. She's a mom. She's a badass at work. She does it all. Welcome back to the Meraki Unboxed podcast. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Sammy?
I'm so good, and I'm excited you're on, and I always love a repeat guest, so hopefully you have a lot more to say.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I always have something to say.
That's why you're on. That's why we love you. Okay, so starting with my first question that I ask every single guest, because we got to know your story. Let's start from the beginning. Tell us, how did you get into technology, and how did you end up landing at Cisco Meraki specifically?
Yeah, so when I exited college, it was in the midst of the Great Recession, so great chance to jump into the job market. Kidding. But when I did jump into the job market, I had all intentions of doing government work as a political science major at a UC Davis. But the only jobs that were available were sales jobs. So I started working at a manufacturer, traveling the country, getting department stores to bring in our product and sell it. But then from there, I entered a startup called Demand Force. And that's when I really got into tech sales as actually an ADR at the time doing cold calling, and then was quickly acquired by Intuit. So working at Intuit, we were jumping into all sorts of different markets to sell our communication marketing software. So I started in automotive, and they quickly found out that I was really good at kickstarting divisions. So figuring out new markets, segments, industries that we can sell our solution into and solve problems for people. So did a lot of branching out and building up our medical division team, branching into cosmetic, dermatology, that sort of thing, and selling our software into ultimately large hospitals. So that was how I entered into tech, was first jumping into sales, then elevating myself into an ADR role, to then elevate myself into a sales role, and then to a national sales consultant role. And then from there, I left, went to another tech startup where I was actively recruited to join Meraki the whole time I was there from a previous employer of Demand Force that actually still works at Meraki. I don't know if you know Ryan Boudouin, but
Sure
he recruited me. And yeah, so then I came to Meraki. I figured, hey, I'll go jump into sales for a year and figure out what the company is all about, knowing that I would love to do another kickstart again for Meraki like I did for Intuit. And that's when the transformation opportunity presented itself, jumped into that, then was asked to do ecosystem, and the rest is history. I know that's
Wow.
quite a mouthful.
I love it, though. It's always helpful to have background, and I love hearing what people majored in versus what you actually end up doing in your career. That's why college is so exploratory, and you try to figure it out, but you don't always know where you're going to land, and you're so good at what you do. So I can't imagine you not being in this line of work. So I'm luckily political science didn't get you, and we have you here.
Well, it's actually such a good point, and oftentimes people say things like, "Oh, you didn't end up using your major." And I would argue that I did. I
Right.
mean, what I wanted to ultimately do after college was solve problems.
Hmm.
And isn't sales just constantly solving problems for customers, right?
Yep.
It's just a different way in which I was able to use the skill sets that I learned from my collegiate time, and apply that to the tech world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. The skills are transferable. So it's interesting. You brought up this theme that I keep hearing you say, Kickstarter, and you love starting new projects and doing something new. And I think that's a perfect transition into sharing a bit more about where you're at now at Cisco Meraki, which is leading this ecosystem team. So for those folks listening in who are like, what the heck is that? What is the ecosystem? Tell me, what is your team responsible for? What do they do? And can you explain kind of what that term means here at Cisco?
Yeah, so an ecosystem partner, at least at Meraki, is a developer who builds, or even a solution provider that builds solutions on top of our cloud platform. So they extract the useful data sets that we have within the Meraki cloud platform, and they use that to power their applications. We can actually dive into that a little bit more in a bit, but leveraging the data from the platform, they can offer our customers joint solutions, these applications that solve customer problems. So the main focus of our role, or at least my team's job, is to attract, recruit, and onboard and
Mm,
manage this community of developers and solution providers, and grow that community larger and larger so
hmm.
we can solve just a wide range of problems for our customers, and not just our traditional customer, the IT or the IT buyer, the CIO, but also to address all the problems of the many lines of business within a company. So the solutions that we offer, these applications that are built, can solve problems not just for IT, but for the many lines of business within a company.
Right, right. Okay. So theoretically, could anyone become an ecosystem partner? Like, what is the process? How do they come to you? How do you go out and prospect them? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways we do this. We certainly boast our APIs out there in the market.
Hmm.
So in order to extract that useful data to power applications, that is the power of our API. So the more we promote our API, the more developers and solution providers are attracted to our platform to serve their customers. So that's one way we go to attract this type of community and grow it. We also have a really strong grassroots movement where more of our ecosystem partners tell other potential ecosystem partners, and it's kind of just a fire that's taken off.
Hmm.
So a lot of it is organic growth. Our sales team is one of the biggest drivers, if not the biggest driver, in attracting developers to our platform just by raising awareness, talking about it with customers, and customers talking with solution providers they use and say, hey, can you leverage some of that data from the Meraki Cloud platform? And so that's how we've really grown today. I mean, our marketplace now has over 100,000 views in just the last 45
Wow.
days. So that's quite staggering, right? That's a variation of customers looking for solutions to their problems. That's sellers promoting the marketplace and its solutions, and that's developers going, "Hey, what's this? Can I be a part of this?" So right now, I would say it's primarily organic growth, and the word of mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. No better marketing than word of mouth. I feel like that's incredible. You mentioned it, so this is awesome. We're on the same page here. Something really amazing and unique about our platform is the Meraki Marketplace, and that's essentially where all of these ecosystem partners are housed. Right? It's kind of that like single one-stop shop where you can find out all of this information. So, can you kind of explain what is the marketplace? How did it come to be? And how is that a differentiator from some of our competitors?
Yeah, so like you said, the marketplace showcases all of these applications that our ecosystem partners build.
Right.
And all of these applications that are listed on the marketplace are leveraging APIs, formal integrations in which they can extract the useful data from the platform for their solutions to perform. So I keep saying that, but if you kind of want to visualize what I mean, because
Hmm.
data is so general and broad, some examples of these solutions that you can find in marketplace we have ServiceNow and PagerDuty applications, right? These are widely adopted solution providers that provide solutions to customers, and we have a formal, high-performing integration with those highly adopted solutions, and those are available in Marketplace. So those commonly used IT networking enterprise applications can just be turned on for absolutely free.
Wow.
In addition to those that serve the CIO and IT buyer, we also have other applications that leverage data from the cloud platform. So, for example, a sales and marketing uh, person within a company can leverage applications that pull wireless analytics from our
Mm,
wireless access points, so they can better understand how people are moving about the stores. They can optimize their merchandise and ultimately drive more sales.
mm-hmm.
Or perhaps a physical security team can leverage our Meraki cameras and extract video to make sense of license plates to identify whether or not there's a trespassing car in a parking lot. This is what I mean by leveraging the useful data sets, whether you're looking for incident management and alert monitoring with ServiceNow and PagerDuty. That's great for an IT manager, right? Whether you are trying to raise the level of performance within sales and marketing, you can use things like wireless and camera analytics. And as serious as a physical security team identifying trespassing vehicles or identifying anomalies that could be potentially threatening.
Mm-hmm.
This is the type of thing that we can power.
Wow, that's incredible. So is it safe to assume that like you've seen a shift in the APIs within our marketplace? Like it sounds like it was much more IT focused at one point. Not that it isn't, but now it's like the physical security buyer or a sales team or a marketing team is wanting these analytics. Like have you seen a shift since even you've been in the role?
Absolutely. I would say 4 years ago, it was primarily IT solutions,
Mm-hmm.
which is still incredibly important, right? The more we can optimize for IT and CIO, the better they can operate and serve the other lines of business within their companies. They're not getting larger budgets, right? Lots of IT is operating exceptionally lean.
Mm-hmm.
So those are still incredibly important, and we still see a great deal of solutions come through. But there has been a shift where we are solving problems for customers they had no idea their networking and camera infrastructure could do for them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
um, a great example of this, I was on a call with a customer last week, and it was a situation where they were making a decision on wireless access points, and it wasn't the CIO who was making this or calling the shots rather on the what they would ultimately purchase for wireless. It was their membership renewal team
Wow.
because they want to leverage wireless access points to engage the visitors in the gym and keep loyalty up and keep people renewing their gym memberships. So now you're seeing a membership renewal team making technology decisions like wireless for
Wow.
their business.
Yeah.
So we are seeing that trend. We're seeing other lines of business making decisions in lockstep with their IT teams so they can power this new future with data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the wheels are turning in my brain right now because as a business development director, that's what we're thinking about doing is who are we reaching out to? Who are we having conversations with? Who are the decision makers? And to your point, I feel like it's changed so much in the last 4 or 5 years to where it's not just IT that's making these calls, right? It's the different segments of the business, and I especially feel like post pandemic and hybrid work and these environments and how are we leveraging our data and doing more with less. So it's cool to see that you're seeing that reflected on your side too. I mean, it's clear that there's a major investment, right, coming from Cisco, coming from Meraki to our ecosystem team, API integrations. Like, I think it is the future. It is the differentiator. We've got partners asking about it. We've got Cisco asking about it. And I can just hear in your voice, like, you light up when you talk about this stuff. So let me ask, like, what is so exciting to you about this particular segment of the business? And, like, where does your passion and energy come from?
I think my passion comes from my history in sales. In other words, I think all sales rules are essentially rules in which they solve problems for customers. I mean, that's what you professionally do for a living. If sales had another word for it, it'd be problem solver for
Mm-hmm.
customers. And I think that's what lights me up is that we are solving various problems for our customers that they can imagine that their networking IoT stack could solve for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's twofold. There, the first part is we solve problems for customers that goes beyond network performance, right? So it's great that we can offer a reliable, high performing, secure wireless so those can connect to the internet. But just as importantly, it's great that we can also, help with membership renewals, like I mentioned, or keep campuses safer. Or, I mean, there's just so many problems that we can solve
Mm-hmm.
with this platform that really excites me. And there's nothing better than having a conversation like I mentioned the gym trying to have more membership renewals. I mean, can you imagine having an in-person conversation and talking to a gym membership renewal team, and they go, "Man, how do we get more renewals this year?" And you go, "Oh, your wireless access point will make a difference." And they're like, "What?" So
Right.
it's I think that's what makes it so exciting because it's so shocking.
Mm-hmm.
And when they realize that the infrastructure that they choose for their building is going to make that much of a difference for their business, that certainly excites me. And then the ecosystem partners who develop on this platform, the entrepreneurship, the innovation, that is very exciting. This is the epitome uh, of entrepreneurship, right? Where we have these companies building these incredible solutions of the future, and our platform is attracting that. It's almost breeding all these different applications, and we're growing so fast we can't even keep up with all the applications, to be frank. Today we offer over 250 solutions. We are by far the most high performing marketplace in both networking and IT. And I think that's what, these two big reasons here, both that we can solve all these various problems for everyone, and then also um, dominating the space of innovation and entrepreneurship. Those are the two most exciting pieces.
Yeah.
I think that excites everybody.
Totally. That's such a good point. It's like these folks are getting to create and develop, and the Meraki platform is so powerful, and word of mouth and attracting all these people, and we have 250 ecosystem partners live, and you said we can't even keep up with the applications. Like, that's just insane. The popularity overnight and the innovation and people being so creative and using our platform as like the jumping off point. I think that's so cool. And this is a perfect segue because we're talking about innovation and transformation and getting people on board, which is essentially exactly what a good leader does. And I want to pivot and talk about the stuff that really gets me going, which is strong females in leadership. And I love interviewing people on this podcast who are strong female leaders at our company. And your story is interesting because you started right as an individual contributor, and now you're leading this team. So talk to us. I mean, what was that leadership journey like for you at Meraki? Did you always feel like you had this sense that you wanted to lead, or did you kind of fall into it? I'm curious, what did it look like for you?
Yeah, so when I joined Meraki, I know Ryan's going to laugh that we reference him so much on this podcast.
Shout
But
out to
I
Ryan.
remember when I applied, when Ryan was adamant that I come to Meraki. I remember vividly where I was when I had this conversation with him. And he's like, "Join Meraki. There's all this great opportunity. You'll crush it here. You could just jump into sales, crush sales for a year, and then figure out what you want to do in the company." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll do that." And I like ended up doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Weird.
but it ended up. I always knew as I do love sales. I love working directly with customers. I love working with partners to solve customer problems. But I always knew that I wanted to have a role where I can up. I have a very much an upstart personality, like a kickstart personality. I love creating something out of nothing,
Mm.
which is what. So, like, as much as I love sales, I knew that's where I was going to, what I was going to seek out. In previous capacities, like at Intuit, they always assign me with how to do something new. Like, "Hey, we've been selling to automotive shops. Can you figure out how we can break into dealerships?" And then I'd make enough cold calls and ask enough questions to figure out what problems a dealership has versus an automotive shop. And they go, oh, she figured that out. Hey, can you figure out how we can sell to ophthalmology over optometry? And then I'd figure that out. And then they go, oh, how can we sell to dermatology instead of just, dental and optometry? Figure that out. And then it even got even more challenging. How do we sell to hospitals that have little or no money in
Wow.
the middle of a financial crisis where they don't have a ton of funding? And then I'd have to figure that out. Like, what pain points do they have versus a dermatologist versus an optometry versus a dealership? So I've always had a kickstart personality. I love figuring out how to solve problems. So I was always going to gravitate to a role where I could solve more problems. And ultimately, that led to the leadership position I'm in now, to lead a team that kickstarts something completely new to the market and solves problems. So
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. I mean, a follow up on that, what has been your experience being a leader? I mean, first time leading a team, you're going to learn a lot along the way. What's kind of been the most surprising thing for you?
Hmm. At least with the existing team that I have now, I don't know if it kind of innately happened or subconsciously happened during the recruiting process, but we have seemed to attract people who also are just equally as passionate of helping customers and solving customer problems as I am.
Hmm.
So leading a team, what I've learned is you you don't have to do it alone, and you can share that passion and vision with a group of people and with an entire company and with an entire community, like you mentioned, Cisco and the customers we serve. So I think that's what I've learned in leadership, that this can be a really contagious thing and it doesn't have to be some personal ambition.
Right. Right. Yeah. You mentioned this several times. You love creating something out of nothing. How do I go and do something new? That is that's an awesome skill set, because that can be extremely intimidating to people who, maybe they start a new role or start a job somewhere and there isn't a roadmap, right? It's a blank page and they've got to go figure it out. And let's say that's not innately someone's personality, or that's something that someone wants to work on. That's a characteristic that it's like, I want to create and I want to dig into my toolbox. What would you say to someone? I mean, I know it fuels you naturally, but what are some ways that someone who's looking to do that, or looking to get outside the box or bring something new to a team, where could they start?
I think if you, well, this is just my experience, but if you authentically want to help somebody
Hmm.
or serve somebody or solve a problem for someone or a customer, I feel, at least for me, everything's always fallen into place. So if your North Star is, I sell a product or I sell a solution or I sell a service or whatever, or maybe you have your own business, whatever it is that you're doing, and you passionately feel that you can help someone else, and that's your North Star, and every decision that you make, I feel as if, at least in my career, everything has fallen into place. So, I mentioned all the different medical divisions that we broke into at Intuit. Um, I think by asking a lot of the right questions and figuring out a lot of the struggles and pain and problems that businesses were having, and then figuring out how to apply the tech that I was selling to solve those things, uh, it made upstarting those things very easy. Because if
Hmm.
you can solve problems, it's amazing how much the people on the other end will embrace you and purchase what you're selling and rally behind you, and how you build a community that believes in the same thing as you. But it has to be authentic. And if it's not, uh, people don't naturally gravitate towards that.
Yep. Yep. 100%. I mean, that's how you convey your value, right? And a good seller is going to listen more than they talk. And if it's understanding the pain point, what's your issue? And then you're coming back with how to provide value to that specific customer and that specific use case, you're going to gain trust and credibility, like right off the bat.
Absolutely. I mean, even just today, I was asked, "Hey, I have a retail store with 1,200 locations. What solution and marketplace can help them?" That's almost the equivalent of saying, I'm thinking of a number from 1 through 10.
Right.
Yeah. Guess what it is,
Yeah.
right? Um, Without actually sitting down with that customer and asking, what they're going through and what their ambitions are and what they want to achieve and where they want to go and what consistently continues to be a problem, and then figuring out what solutions can solve for those problems, you're kind of missing the mark, right? So to kind of get back to the question of, how do you kickstart something if you are authentically helping others and solving problems for others, everything else falls into place. At least again, that's what I've experienced, what I
Yeah.
feel.
It's great advice. It really is. And I feel like you kick down doors to make things happen. Why do I get the hunch that's just your personality?
Well, if I passionately feel I can, help others, or that these solutions are real and
Yeah.
the entrepreneurs that I meet every day have something to offer our customers, I'll kick down every door and stand on every soapbox to make
Hmm.
sure every customer knows that we're here and we have these incredible companies that we work with, that we've joined forces with to
Hmm.
help them. And if it means doing those types of activities that are very aggressive, to get their attention, because I know authentically I'm coming from a good place and I know we can help them, um, and so be it.
Yeah. I mean, aggressive or assertive, right? I feel like, there's nothing wrong with saying what you need and getting it done. And I think, we'll talk about this in a second, the likability dilemma. We'll get there. But I want to ask you a question, and this is somewhat personal because I see the way you operate within a company and I see how you get things done, but I think this could be relevant for anyone listening in any role. Navigating through Cisco and Meraki and getting approvals and going through the chains and the red tape on certain things. How do you move efficiently with throughout throughout the organization? How do you get things done quickly? I see you work, and I think you're pretty masterful at this. So, can you give some? Can you share, I guess, how you do that so well?
I would say that every person I meet throughout Meraki and Cisco, I want to recruit believers. So
Hmm.
I want to recruit people who will believe in what we're doing here. And sometimes some people are more ready than others. So, um, so I'll come back around to maybe people that aren't ready to believe yet, and that happens a lot, but it's happening less frequently.
Hmm.
And you kind of alluded to that, and we're recruiting more believers to believe in what it is that we're doing. And when I connect with people, it's not just transactional, like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna convince this person so I can get something. No, it's I'm gonna convince this person so we can get aligned and we're both on the same mission, and now we can go help the customers like we intend to do.
Hmm.
So I think that the best way is if you really believe in what you're doing, that authenticity is incredibly contagious, and people want to rally around that.
Hmm.
Some sooner than others. You could come back around to those people, but that's how I've navigated Meraki and Cisco. I found something that I believe in with all my heart, mind, and soul.
Hmm.
And people feel that, and then they rally. So now we have just a large group of believers, both
Hmm.
inside and outside of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you say when you recruit these believers, is it a mix of, I mean, clearly your authenticity, who you are, showing up with energy, showing up with passion is part of it. It's the storytelling, and then it's the data component, right? Like all three kind of have to align.
Yeah. So stories is really important, right? So talking about how uh, we solved the customer problem, and the way it happened was, a customer was considering another option, or had threw up their hands and said, I can't solve this problem, and then ultimately being able to do so because we joined forces with a partner to deliver a solution. um, I think the accumulation of those stories, they just keep getting big. It's just a massive wave at this point. So when people start to see, wow, that customer problem was solved, that customer problem was solved, it wasn't just a small business, it wasn't just a large enterprise, it's starting to be just about every shape and size of a customer. That's really what's made the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's circle back to this likability dilemma for women. So, as any good podcaster would, I stalked your LinkedIn, and you had liked or shared a TED Talk that was like 10 minutes long, and it was called The Likability Dilemma for Women Leaders. And it was by Robin Hauser. And I watched the video and I loved it. And it totally resonated with me. And I was like, I got to talk to her about this when she's on the podcast. So, the long and the short of it is, her point that women in business, women in technology experience this likability dilemma, which is, do I want to be liked or do I want to get things done and, be assertive and aggressive, or all these things that I think women are sometimes called in business, who just have a point of view and want to get things done. And it's a balance, right? I guess you have to strike. Why did you share it, first of all? What do you think of the video, and what has your experience been as a woman in business?
Man, that's a lot of questions.
It's heavy. I basically do 3 in 1, so you can pick that apart.
I will.
Yeah.
The likability dilemma for women. Well, it's funny. It's funny that I liked it because I did watch it, but like I'd seen it before. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, I remember agreeing with this.
Yeah.
So, I think, at least in my career, especially when I was starting out, I did feel, especially in sales, that there was an image of what a successful salesperson looks like. And it was primarily not women.
Mm-hmm.
So like, the rah-rah movies you see with like Alec Baldwin always be closing, to Leonardo DiCaprio and The Wolf of Wall Street,
Yep.
to Gordon Gekko and in Wall Street. There's this, the boiler room, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's all these personas of what makes a great salesperson and what that's supposed to look like, which almost, in effect, maybe unintentionally, also simultaneously says what it doesn't look like. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It sure does.
So you watch these films where it's these men that are supposed to represent what a successful sales or business person looks like. And they always, outsmart the other person on the other line, or, they close that person, right? It's so, speaking of aggressive, that's like supposed to be the nature of it. And like that is really celebrated just in those films, right? And I found out is very much celebrated, at least in especially my earlier career. That was also celebrated as well. I'll never forget a meeting I was in where they were like rah-rahing us up, like, we got to close out the quarter. And they played the Wolf of Wall Street footage.
Oh, wow.
And all the women in there were like, this is not really motivating.
Right. This feels a little tone deaf. Yeah.
And doesn't this guy end up in jail?
Yes, he does.
So I guess it's interesting why I'm saying all this, because I do think the dilemma, to get back to your question, is there's this like persona that, what a successful business or salesperson is supposed to look like. And that is, that man, right? And the dilemma for women is when if they were to do all the identical behaviors of any of the characters in that film, or any of the men that I worked with in previous sales roles, they would be considered abrasive, too much, I mean, it would definitely just be received differently. So when I saw the video come across my LinkedIn, having seen it before and then liking it, I was able to relate to that dilemma, because I know that men are glorified when they do those types of behaviors, but when women do it, it's an inconvenience, it's annoying, it's aggressive, it's too much. So yeah.
Yeah.
that's why I ultimately liked it.
Right. Right. Yeah. It was just interesting to, and she uses a lot of examples that are kind of somewhat similar in the video, and it's only 10 minutes. So I definitely recommend watching it. But do you feel, Alicia, like as a female leader it's a balancing act between being liked or respected? Do you ever feel like are you concerned with, I'd rather be liked? Some women, not so much, right? Some women might really struggle with this. I'm wondering, as a leader, where do you kind of stand on that spectrum?
I would say I admittedly am not that concerned with likability.
Wait, I love that.
So I I'd rather be associated with how much I get done.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm always someone who gets done, it makes it really challenging for whoever's managing me or the company I'm working for to not like me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So um I do ultimately lean on being very performance driven, and the more I perform, the more I'll be liked. And so I guess that's how I deal with this dilemma. I don't carry the persona, nor would I want to, of any of the characters I just mentioned, but
Mm-hmm.
instead choose the approach to perform. And to perform in this role is to solve as many problems for customers, and that ends up resulting in wins for the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's how I go about it.
Yeah. I love that you just owned that. Like, I don't care as much about likability as I do doing my job, performing well, supporting my people, which in turn will, cause you to be liked. But I think I resigned myself to that a long time ago as a leader. I would way rather be respected than liked by everyone, because you're just in business. That's impossible, right? You can do your best. You can show up. You can be in your authentic truth. You can try your best. You're never going to make everyone happy, right, at the end of the day. But I think being performance driven, being awesome, right, showing up and having a sense of purpose in the work you do is so much more important than wanting to be liked by everyone. And I think especially for first-time managers, right, or being a first-time leader, it's natural to want to be liked. I think humans in general, right, we all want to be liked. But when you set that aside and reside to just doing the work and putting your head down and putting your people first, and results come, it all evens out in the end. But I hear you on that.
Yeah, I mean, you could either, try to fit these personas that apparently are perceived as likable, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
for certain people, or you can, or one of my favorite sayings is from Steve Martin, be so good they can't ignore you.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a
And
good one.
yeah, it's like one of my favorites. So, again, if you're performance based and you're so good that you can't be ignored,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I guess if one's desire is to be liked, no better way than to perform and be so good they can't ignore you.
Totally. Totally. Or what is it? I'm going to butcher this, but Michael Scott, I guess they asked, would you rather be loved or feared? He's like, I want them to fear how much they love me. that was
Yeah.
that was his answer to that. Okay, so we're coming up on time. I have one more question to ask. I always love to end with a call to action of sorts. And then we'll wrap it up. But you have to come back again.
Of course, yeah.
Yes, yes. This is the thing now. Now that you've done two, I mean, it's just every couple of months.
Gotta go for
You
three.
got
We
to go
gotta
for
go
three.
for the triple hat.
Triple hat. There we go. So if someone's listening and they're at Cisco or Meraki, or perhaps they want to become, an API partner and within our ecosystem, and you've sparked curiosity, where can people go? Where can people learn about your team or find you? Tell us where they should begin the journey.
Yeah, so it's really easy. The first place I would start is the Meraki Marketplace. So that's currently apps.meraki.io. So apps, apps dot, excuse me, yeah, apps.meraki.io. Once you land there, you can discover the right applications for you. So we're always optimizing the site to better the discoverability of the right application for each customer. So just by going there and navigating the site, you can start to uncover what solutions we have to offer. And, don't just visit once, come back and visit it 3 months from now, because it's likely there's going to be 25 new solutions that weren't there the last time you were there. So that would be the number one recommendation I would give anyone listening to the podcast, is to explore the Meraki Marketplace, find out what solutions exist, and then continue that exploration as you continue your Meraki journey.
Beautiful. Heard it here first. Alicia Lorenzetti, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me, Sammy.
You're the absolute best. It was my pleasure. And that wraps up another episode, folks, of the Meraki Unboxed podcast. My name is Sammy Brenner. Be sure that you subscribe, download, listen, tell all your friends and family about how amazing this podcast is. We are producing new content every 2 weeks, so we will see you back here soon. Take care.